it's Onita here, welcome back. So, Shadow and Bone, Throne of Glass, and Scythe. The 3 books I read for a reading challenge I decided to do, and it was called Reading 3 Popular YA Series. Not the whole series, just the first one in the series, and it was a success. I have to agree and admit that all the books were so good. Oh my goodness. The reading vlog I did for that was a little bit long, it was like nearly an hour. So if you haven't watched it, I don't blame you because it is long, and I decided, well, why not make dedicated like book talks or book reviews about it. I want to keep this as short as possible just for the sake of editing, and because it's not really a book talk, it's just like a review. Yeah, and because these are such well-known popular series, like I would assume that a lot of people would know what happens. And who knows, I might make a spoilery sequel to this. Like reading vlog sequel, I don't know entirely. That actually sounds like a pretty good idea, but anyway, let's get into the book talks. Not book talks, book reviews. The first one that I read is Shadow and Bone. It is the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. The TV show is coming out this Friday. It's tomorrow. Oh my goodness, it's tomorrow. And the reason why I decided to read this was in preparation for the show. Alina Starkov is a soldier who knows that she may not survive her first trek across the Shadowfold, a swath of unnatural darkness crawling with monsters. When her regiment is attacked, Alina unleashes dormant magic that not even she knew she possessed. She enters the lavish world of royalty and intrigue as she learns to use her newfound powers by training with her country's magical elite military, the Grisha. The Darkling believes that Alina's powers will destroy the Shadowfold once and for all, reuniting their war-ravaged country. So this is the first book I read, and I'm going in the order that I read them in. So this is the first one I read. It is completely told in first-person narrative, which you don't see a lot in fantasy, and I really actually quite enjoy that. Because first-person narrative is my preferred narrative, but a lot of fantasy is told in third person, which is fine. I enjoy third person, but first person is my preference. Alina does not take crap from anyone. She's sassy, she is strong, a little bit like unsure of herself as well. And her relationship with Mal, her lifelong friend, is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I wanted a little bit more from it. Like, I didn't really feel the chemistry a lot, probably because we didn't really get much on-page time with them, I guess you could say, because most of this book is taking place with Alina finding out about who she is and how she possesses this dormant magic that could potentially destroy the Shadowfold, and her training. And with Alina and Mal, I kind of had a bit of a feeling that there was going to be a relationship, like boyfriend-girlfriend, I love you kind of relationship with them, and I wasn't wrong entirely. And I'm starting to realize that a lot with YA, that it just seems to be like, ooh, like that guy or that girl I see over there is going to be my new girlfriend. It just seems a little bit tropey of YA. I'm slowly starting to learn about, but I am curious to see where their relationship goes from there. Now, I can see a little bit of myself in Alina, with her feeling like being an outcast and not really making any friends, but the friends that she does have only want her for something else, only so that they make themselves look better. Now the Grisha. They are really interesting, the Grisha. There's 3 different Grishas, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. I didn't even write it down in notes, so that's completely my fault. The way you distinguish them is by the cuffs on their clothing, and they treat the people around them, or people who don't have the Grisha powers in them, to be inferior to them. The Grisha see themselves as being superior to other people as well as other Grisha. Like, they're constantly being assholes towards other Grisha and other people who they think are a threat to them, who they think will threaten them getting close and working alongside the Darkling. And in the beginning of the book, you don't really know what the Grisha are, what they do, or even what the Darkling is. Whenever I read from the Darkling, or whenever I read about the Darkling, I had a bit of a funny feeling like I just felt like I couldn't trust him, like there was just something off about him. What I'm trying to say is you don't know who or what anyone is or is doing until the author lets you in on the secret, or unless the author wants you to know about it. So instead of getting info dumps, we are learning about the Grisha and the world, as Alina does, which I enjoy. I don't mind info dumps, like info dumps don't really bother me at all. At least with info dumps you get knowledge before you get into a story, but I really also enjoy learning about it as the character does as well, because it kind of puts you in their shoes basically. When it comes to world building and the history, I like rich details. Shadow and Bone I felt like did not have a lot. It was more on the lighter side of it, but the world and the history that we did get was pretty vivid, and it was pretty good. It was really good, I have to admit. I had predicted some things that were going to happen, but they didn't happen the way I thought they were going to happen, but the end result was still what I had predicted anyway. Like I keep saying, it's not a bad thing when you predict things, especially when there's like little twists in the theories that you have. And the twists that I didn't even see coming, or I didn't even think of, they surprised even me. And lastly, last point I want to make is this book is very fast-paced. I read this book in like 2 days, I believe, and I believe it is a good entry point for anyone who wants to get into fantasy. Book number 2 I read for this reading challenge was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, the first book in the Throne of Glass series. Now, this is probably one of the more problematic or controversial books I have read. I loved it. I really did. So I'll just give you a bit of a synopsis on what it is, even though I think just about everyone knows what it's about. Just about though. Selena Sardothian is an assassin, the best of her kind, until one day she makes a mistake. She gets caught. Living her sentence in the salt mines of Andovia, Selena is given the opportunity to win her freedom. She must represent the prince in a to-the-death tournament, fighting the most gifted thieves and assassins in the land. Whether she wins or loses, lives or dies, she will be set free. And along the way, she discovers her destiny. And this is my first entry into Sarah J. Maas, her books, her writing, her world, her characters, everything. And it was a success. It was such a success. I honestly should have been reading her books before. The hype is real. People. Well, at least to me at least. And I was a little hesitant about getting into this book because I had heard quite a lot of negativity about it. People are allowed to have negativities about books. It's just sometimes I think too much about the negativity and trying to find the negativity that other people find instead of just enjoying reading for the sake of enjoying reading, which is what I do. I'm not a critical thinker when it comes to reading. I don't critically analyze books. I read books for enjoyment, for escapism. That's just me. Like, I'm not saying I won't like find things that I find could be a negative for me or even you. It's just I read purely for enjoyment. It's told in multiple point of view and third person narrative. And when I read, like in the beginning, not like in the beginning of the book, but when we first got a different point of view, it kind of jarred me a little bit because it felt like the voices of the characters were the same, especially Kale and Dorian. They felt a little bit similar to me. It wasn't up until I was learning about who the characters are and the personalities that I started to distinguish between them. I think I'm just used to A Song of Ice and Fire series where each chapter is from a different character. The world building in here is fantastic for a YA fantasy. I'm not dragging YA fantasy or anything and saying that they don't have incredible world building, because they do, like with this one. And I felt it was a definite step up from Shadow and Bone. It was something that I was missing from in Shadow and Bone, that really rich history, the details and everything like that. Not to say that Shadow and Bone wasn't good or didn't have any good world building, it did. It just wanted a little bit more, and Throne of Glass delivered that for me. I love the history of the world and the myths and legends within the world, how the world became that way and what is going to happen in the future installments in the world of Throne of Glass. Selena is strong, she's a badass, and can be both a killer, which is like befitting her assassin profession, and a bit of a girly girl who likes fashion and has a penchant for sweets, like candies, chocolates. I really like that. Instead of just having like the female protagonist just be one thing, one dimension, stone cold blooded killer, we get a little bit more depth into her. Okay. Her relationships with Kale, Dorian, and Princess Nehemia were all so good, and I loved every minute of it. I'm not kidding you when I say that the love triangle, I guess you could say, or the relationships between her and Dorian and Kale, I don't know who I want her to be with. Like, what is her game? Is she just used to seducing people because of her assassin training? Or just, I don't know. She has such a good relationships with all of them. And I don't know who I want her to be with. And I have heard to not get too attached to relationships because the author has a bit of a habit of switching up the love interests. So I'm going to try and not think about love interests until like the end of the book, until I know who she actually ends up with. Princess Nehemia, I loved her. She's trying to help her people, and her relationship with Selena. Oh my gosh, I got very teary-eyed towards the end when they really sat down and chatted with each other when they could be themselves. That got me so teary-eyed. And also, this book did bring out a lot of emotions in me, like, especially towards the end, like I said, with Selena and Princess Nehemia towards the end of the book, and also when championships were happening, like the final championship where she had to fight the last remaining champion to become the king's assassin, basically. And oh my god, I was walking around the room, I had my iPad in front of me, I was ready to read it, but I couldn't because the emotions in me, my heart was hammering in my chest. I was panicking and anxious, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was so nervous. And I was trying to avoid that chapter, like, so much, because my heart was hammering that much and I was panicky. And I was pacing around the room not knowing what the hell was going to happen, being so scared for Selena. I pulled on my big girl panties and I finished that chapter. Oh, another thing as well, there's this kind of murder mystery in this book as well, which I enjoyed. I was not expecting that at all, because you don't really hear a lot of people saying that there's this kind of murder mystery involved in the book. And that was a nice little surprise. It really truly was. I kind of had predicted who it was, and I was like, Selena, open your fucking eyes, it's in front of you! But she ended up, like, figuring it out, and actually I was surprised about one thing about the king that she had to fight to be the champion for. He's mysterious. There's this whole other mysterious business happening that I think will set up for the rest of the series. Like, about who Selena really is, about what the king is doing and what he knows and why he is doing these things. But I'm honestly, me talking about that last bit about the whole mystery is making me really excited to read the rest of the books in this series. The third and last book I read for the reading challenge is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. It is book 1 in the arc of the Scythe trilogy. Humanity has conquered war, disease, crime, and death. As humans are living longer and longer and mortality is a thing of the past, the population has grown exponentially. In order to keep the population down to a reasonable level, scythes are tasked with the job of killing or gleaning people at random. Citra and Rowan are 2 teenagers who have been called upon to become an apprentice to the scythe, in which they will learn the ways of a scythe and scythedom, and the necessity of being a scythe. Neither of them want anything to do with the things involved with this particular field. However, things get complicated when the winning apprentice's first task is to glean the loser. Now, they don't use the word killing in this book, they use the word glean. I liked it. I liked that little different contrast between the past and mortality and the age of mortality, and the future, which is where this book is set in. And out of the two books that I have previously read, in my opinion, I think this one had the stronger writing. This book takes place in Earth in the very near or very far off in the future. Loved the sci-fi elements, and it made the world feel more realistic with the little sci-fi elements and the advancements in technology within this book. And the way this book talks about humans who were mortal was quite fascinating because, like I said, they called people who were mortal, they called that era the age of mortality. The cloud is no longer the cloud, it's called the Thunderhead. The way I see it, it's like Skynet, but kinda towards humans, like Thunderhead wants to protect humans. Only there's no Terminators invading us to kill us, basically. I am realizing, like I've said before with, oh my god, what was it, Shadow and Bone, I think. I'm realizing with YA, whenever there's a boy or a girl, or a teenage boy or girl I should say, in a room together, it always seems like there has to be this kind of relationship between the two. I don't know exactly how I feel about that. It kind of feels like it's a bit of a trope in YA in general, I'm starting to realize. I don't know how I feel. I'm a bit mixed because, one, it just feels a bit predictable, and two, I don't feel the chemistry between Citra and Rowan. Like, maybe a lot of the chemistry happened like off the page because the whole story is not about the relationship between Citra and Rowan, but about corruption within the Scythedom, and just I don't know, I'm a little mixed about that. I can see that they would be bonded quite strongly because of the predicament that they are in. It's just a little predictable, a little, I don't want to say cheesy, but it is a little predictable, and I'm having a feeling a little overused within YA. So after each chapter we get entry points into the journal of a scythe, because scythes need to have journals to like show that they're not really cold, heartless killing machines, and that they are humans and they do have feelings and thoughts and stuff like that, and all their journals are accessed by the Thunderhead. And if they want to, I found this really fascinating, if they wanted to, scythes could use their notoriety as a scythe and become celebrities in their own right, where others just do their job and just try and stay low. The scythes are part of their own society. The Thunderhead does not get involved at all, and instead they, like the scythes come together at this conclave to discuss matters of importance, like have people been meeting their quota for gleaning people and other information that needs to be resolved or looked into more. And that is held 3 times a year. And just think of it as like a G20 summit, you know, where like all the politicians gather in a place and talk about world issues. It's kind of very similar to that. And one thing that was really interesting, even though it is mentioned that politicians are they're non-existent in this book, because if they were to achieve immortality, they would have greed. They would be so greedy, they would want to basically be gods, be kings forever, instead of giving other people a chance, basically. So all the politicians are kind of gleaned, if I remember correctly. And the Thunderhead is there to take care of all the political things that politicians used to do before, when they were politicians. Like when the science and technology behind immortality became commonplace, these scythes were to show compassion and to not judge people before they kill, or to kill people based on what their judgment of that one is. Like someone could just kill all women, all children, all males, stuff like that. They're shown not to judge and to not show greed or even act like a politician. It amazed me because a lot of the scythes acted like politicians. There's a lot of under-the-table dealings. There's a lot of political scheming and backstabbing. So in reality, they really were no different to the politicians in the Age of Mortality. And I love the social commentary that it had about humanity and society and the thought-provoking elements within the story. And I think I kind of got a little bit sidetracked with that whole politician statement, but what I was trying to say is the politicians in the Age of Mortality and the Scythes now, they're really no different from each other. Basically, that's what I was trying to say. Throughout the story, there were twists and turns I did not see coming. And as well as being fast-paced, I am very curious to see where the rest of the series is going to go. Thank you very much. That is the end of the video. Oh, thank goodness. I apologize if the audio quality is a little bit echoey. I'm actually in my bedroom filming this video right now. Out of the 3 books, the ones I am most interested and excited to read first, like a sequel-wise, would have to be Shadow and Bone and Scythe. Especially Shadow and Bone, because I hear Alina gets quite dark. I don't want to say evil or bad, but she does get quite a little bit dark with her powers consuming her, basically. Then we have Scythe, which I'm, again, very curious. But then also Throne of Glass. Like, oh, they're all good, okay? I don't know which one I want more. Probably Shadow and Bone so I can read Six of Crows because that one is wildly popular. And the good thing about this is they are all completed series. So I can binge it, marathon it, take my time with it because I know they will be, because I know they are finished. So that is all. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a like. Leave a comment down below, have you read any of these books? What were your favorites? And do this series get better on as I continue on with them? And that is all for me. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. Bye.